Alrighty then, so I mustered up even more old footage from the olden days of League to bring you more former badass junglers. Remember, some of these could probably still jungle, but their golden days are far behind them, usually because their nerf and buff state was different, or some key jungle changes ousted them at some point. Some of the footage in this video is super old and ripped straight from my old team battles, so prepare your eyes. First up is old Tarek. His rework is finally here and his jungle capabilities are questionable right now, but a long time ago he had a rework that initially made him absolutely bonkers. While he could jungle to a mediocre extent after he was nerfed, release rework Tarek was actually an insanely powerful jungler. In short, he had great sustain, targeted crowd control, high damage and spammability, and insane tankiness, although even then he was pretty slow at clearing. For the time it was allowed to exist, it was not unheard of for Tarek to be beating entire teams by himself once he's bought Frozen Heart and Spirit Visage. I forgot all the nerfs Riot slammed him with, but he quickly disappeared as his murder power dropped significantly and all his glaring jungle weaknesses became far more pronounced. I like to think of him as a lesson for Riot since this rework of his was part of the ones that felt rushed way back then. It was mostly a memorable jungler because of how literally unstoppable it was. It wasn't a killing machine at the level of Yi or Tryndamere, but Tarek had become this unmovable wall that the enemy would kill themselves running into. Fun fact. Karthus was not the fastest jungler in the game back then, and even a super lucky Tryndamere would be unable to keep up. The title of the fastest jungler, at least at clearing, went to Cassiopeia. This is kind of debatable of course because she had ridiculously horrifying mana issues that kept her from maintaining the speed, and you in fact had to take some mana runs to do this, but it was insanely fast. The other reason she was notable was because this was during a time when she was considered absolute trash at the game. I don't quite remember why, but I have a feeling it was a mix of mana problems and her opponents would easily ass blast her. Still, what made her memorable for me in the jungle was that she absolutely melted anyone who tried fighting her. She was what I call a defensive duelist in that she can't go and assault people because she needs to set up and it's easy to screw up when you're invading, but if anyone invades you, it's far easier to do what you need to do and thus you melted anybody. Even at her worst, she was one of those champions who would run away with the game if she snowballed or became itemized. As an AP jungler, you would build her with Rylai's and slow people down to a crawl as you melted him. Eventually, Liandry's was added and she could wreck people, but of course that was several seasons and changes into the game. I haven't played her as much as before, but with her new rework, I'm curious to try out if the new grounded mechanic can make her a strong jungle candidate again. Old Gangplank used to be the first god tier support jungler in jungle history. Oh, for sure he could absolutely carry and murder people, but its team steroid was incredibly strong just on its own that you could contribute just with that alone and assist your team tremendously. Gangplank received a rework to his raised morale and that he could no longer kill his own minions to deny players and instead could carry it around as a steroid as well as a change to his passive that let him melt monsters. In short, he got a huge push to be able to jungle without dying. He took the meta by storm and was an insanely dominant jungler as he had things few others could dream of having. He had insane gold farming. He had a massive team steroid that was better than Warwick's in terms of value. He had strong stats, a cleanse, global pressure, and the ability to build in a slew of ways from bruiser, sunfire tank, aura carry, or straight carry. Gangplank was not nerfed right away either, and received only tweaks to his numbers. I like to believe that Riot really liked that Gangplank could do this and had brought a very interesting archetype to the jungle, although it just made him better than others and set the bar too high. Eventually, Riot just tore him asunder and robbed Gangplank of his value to the point that he just became a mediocre jungle that could only fit in the most strictest of team compositions. What made him memorable was his supportive qualities combined with the potential to eventually carry, making him one of the few junglers you couldn't really surrender with. The incredible value of his kit made it so you could, in certain bursts, go toe-to-toe with your opponents and hopefully hold out long enough for your carry qualities to kick in so you can change the tide of battle. Basically, no matter how fucked up you were, you would be guaranteed having a strong early game, a strong mid game, and a strong late game. For a while, Jungle Urgot was a walking meme. Basically, he is notorious for repeatedly being the worst champion in League of Legends, at least in terms of win rate, but for a short time he was less trash than before thanks to Spirit of the Lizard Elder. He was memorable because it started off as a joke to streamers when they asked their audience what they should play. Everyone had the same experience with Jungle Urgot. He has no mana, he clears like a chump, he moves like a snail, and is generally unpleasant in every way. By all means, he should just flat out fail and be a loss. But they won with Urgot, and they kept winning. The Urgot team battle I uploaded years ago even had this occur in that I was getting memed by people into playing him, and I was very reluctant. When I finally caved in, I mocked it throughout the start by pointing out all the ridiculous issues, and then I ganked a few people, snowballed, and it was ridiculous. Of course, the other part of the meme is that after you get high off the Urgot drug, you quickly go into withdrawal. And you seemingly can't win any more games, and true enough, every other Urgot game I played was just met with failure. Streamers also had the same effect and just dropped them. Jungle Urgot did not disappear because he was nerfed or anything like that, and instead it was just because people stopped caring about him again and remembered, hey, I don't actually like playing Urgot. The reason you didn't see this next one in the last video was because he was stealth. Ha ha ha. Jungle Twitch was a bit of an anomaly for a jungler. To make Jungle Twitch effective, you basically had to cheat using an elixir of fortitude or the agility one, or by having some very careful assistance from teammates. After hitting level 2 with or without red, you'd try to kill someone right off the bat and then use that blood money to fill your awful clearing. If you didn't manage to kill anyone before your elixirs ran out, then you were basically naked and screwed for the rest of the game, unless you got very lucky with some kills after. Twitch's jungling was pure cheese, but insanely effective because wards were expensive back then and thus rare. If anyone wanted a chance of dealing with you, they needed an Oracle's elixir and some luck, and that was a huge investment and risk. Twitch's stealth also lasted a million years, so sneaking in and out was far easier than it is now. It was so deviously powerful that it helped people rank up and was generally a menace. It was strange though in that people just seemingly could not fight against it even though it had some very clear weaknesses. Eventually Riot nerfed it to the ground, and I want to believe that this also led to the elixir rework, including top lane Riven's abuse of it, and having Twitch in the dust for the longest of time. Riot then reworked Twitch some years later and his jungling was once again revived, although it was less ridiculous than before. Some more changes later, buffs to the jungle and such, he is now just kind of mediocre. I personally don't have many fond memories of him, but he is someone worth mentioning because of how much of a shitstorm he caused to the player base. And even though it didn't become competitive, it was apparently taken into consideration for Twitch's eventual rebalance and likely anything else he receives in the future. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video and the trip down memory lane. Unless you're a new player, then this may be your first time exposed to any of this. I certainly like making videos like this because I get to see how much both League and my channel has changed. With that in mind, there is likely to be a part 3 in the future as there is still just one last batch of old timers to talk about. This channel is supported by my sponsors, Crunchyroll and Loot Crate. Check out the description below for links to the websites. Signing up for any trials, including Crunchyroll's free anime trial, greatly supports my channel. Also remember to give the video a like to support the channel and subscribe if you haven't yet.